The photographs that you have been looking at are all connected to the Holocaust. There are photos of survivors, victims, of rescuers, of persecution, of ghettos and of concentration camps. Some of them are images you may have seen before, some of them may be new to you. What day is it today?
Today is the 27th of January, Holocaust Memorial Day. This is the day for everyone to remember the millions of people killed in the Holocaust, Nazi persecution and in other genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. A genocide is a deliberate attempt to destroy in whole or in part an ethnic, racial, religious or national group. On this day we can honour the survivors of these regimes of hatred and challenge ourselves to use the lessons of their experience to help create a safer, better future.
Why do we mark Holocaust Memorial Day?
Holocaust Memorial Day is a time when we seek to learn the lessons of the past and to recognise that genocide does not just take place on its own. It's a steady process which can begin if discrimination, racism and hatred are not prevented. We're fortunate here in the UK, we are not at risk of genocide. However, discrimination has not ended, nor has the use of the language of hatred or exclusion. There is still much to do to create a safer future, and Holocaust Memorial Day is an opportunity to start this process. We are now going to light the candle. As we light this candle, let us remember all who lost their lives during the Holocaust. May we focus our minds upon the millions in whose memory this day is dedicated.
Journeys is the theme for Holocaust Memorial Day 2014. Journeys were experiences of persecution and terror for many of the people who suffered in the Holocaust, under Nazi persecution and in the subsequent genocides. As part of Holocaust Memorial Day, we are asking everyone to take a step on their own journey to remember the journeys that people were forced to go on as part of the genocide, and to show that we are learning the lessons of the past and using them to help create a safer, better future. Now, let's watch a short video about Holocaust Memorial Day.
The 27th of January is Holocaust Memorial Day, the International Day of Remembrance for the victims and survivors of the Holocaust, Nazi persecution and subsequent genocides in Cambodia, Bosnia, Rwanda and Darfur. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the consequences of discrimination and persecution and learn the lessons of the past.
Between 1941 and 1945, the Nazis attempted to annihilate all of Europe's Jews. This systematic and planned genocide is known as the Holocaust. From the time they assumed power in 1933, the Nazis used propaganda, persecution and legislation to deny human and civil rights to Jews. Jews were denied citizenship, forbidden to marry non-Jews, to own businesses and to live in certain areas. The Nazis used centuries of anti-Semitism as their foundation. Nazi persecution extended beyond Jewish people, political opponents, the Roma and Sinti people, disabled people, gay people, Jehovah's Witnesses, Freemasons and black people were all targeted, and hundreds of thousands of people were murdered. By the end of the Holocaust, 6 million Jewish people had been murdered in ghettos, mass shootings, concentration camps and extermination camps.
I was 16 years old when we arrived in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Within minutes, I got separated from my mother and 2 sisters. A few minutes later, I got separated from my father. I had no opportunity to say goodbye to them, and from that day onwards, I never saw them again.
After Auschwitz, Eugene was imprisoned at the Buchenwald concentration camp. He was forced to work in the tunnels at the Dora Mittelbau labor camp and was finally imprisoned in the concentration camp at Bergen-Belsen.
The scenes in Bergen-Belsen were terrible. There were dead bodies lying all over. The place was infected by typhus. I personally came down to 5 stone.
For 50 years, Eugene said nothing of his ordeals, but now he speaks regularly about the atrocities that he experienced in his youth. In doing so, he has joined a group of survivors who work extremely hard to make sure that the Holocaust will never be forgotten.
I've been speaking to universities, colleges, schools for 65 years, ever since I came over to this country in 1946. I've made numerous films about the Holocaust, particularly about Auschwitz, about my time on the death march, and I have even taken some neo-Nazis back to the camp. It is very important that people understand what happened and learn something from what happened in the past, because we have no guarantee today that it cannot happen again. We believe it can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time.
Sadly, in the years that have passed since the end of the Holocaust, the world has seen genocide take place again and again.
My hope for the Holocaust Memorial Day is for the people to learn about the genocide so that it won't happen again.
The more people commemorate the Holocaust on Holocaust Memorial Day, the more awareness there will be of the dangers and the more people will learn.
I hope that the Holocaust Memorial Day can inspire people, especially young people, to understand that they can make a difference, that one person can make a difference.
I want to ask the young people, as they are the decision makers of the future, to learn the lessons of the past so that these crimes will never happen again.
My dearest wish and hope is for us to live in harmony, to respect each other, and learn to live and let live.
We all have the opportunity to use Holocaust Memorial Day to learn the lessons of the past to create a safer, better future.
We're now going to watch a video of Simon Winston. Simon is a Holocaust survivor. Here he tells us a little bit about the journey he was forced to go on.
In 1941, when Germany attacked Russia and the Russians fled because they weren't expecting it, we soon realised that the Germans didn't like Jews. The Jews were ordered to go into the market square, all 7,000 of us, and when we got there, a group of about 20 Gestapo machine gunners came and they pointed their machine guns at us, and we thought they were going to kill us, and people were screaming and crying and fainting and praying, and then a car pulled up outside the square and a very high-ranking officer came out of the car, waved his arm. The machine gunners put their machine guns away and they left. When we got back to our houses, we discovered that they were empty. The Germans had stolen all our possessions, because about 6 months later, the Germans created a new home for us, a new ghetto, a prison. My father, who was very pragmatic, even before the ghetto was built, he prepared himself. What he did, he sold most of his valuables and he converted the money into gold bars, 8-ounce gold bars, today worth about £10,000 or more. And he would hide these gold bars in various clothing, bottoms of shoes, false bottoms on brushes, etc. And probably the first gold bar that we would have used would have been to bribe one of the guards to let us escape, and that was a miracle. So we escaped from the ghetto. I remember walking down a river, the river that separated our town, Radziwiłł, from Brody, a nearby town where my mother and my brother were born. We couldn't cross by the bridge because we were advised by somebody that the bridge was being guarded by Ukrainian Nazis. So we went downstream, and this is where I start remembering things, because I remember walking down the river and my father suddenly walking into the river, and I thought, what's he doing? He's crazy. And then he walked across the river And as he walked across, the water got higher and higher until it came up to his neck. When he got to the middle of the river, the water came up to his neck. But he didn't drown him. So he was able to come back and collect each one of us, that's me, my brother and my mother, carry us piggyback style to the other side of the river, and now we were free, but soaking wet. And the second miracle, a woman came out of a solitary house and she saw us, could have easily handed us in because she must have recognised we were escaped Jews from the ghetto, probably got rewarded for us, but no, she invited us into her house, allowed us to dry ourselves, warm ourselves, even gave us some fresh clothing, and then allowed us to sleep overnight. But in the morning, she said, please don't ask us to hide you any longer, because the Germans have been there, threatened us, they've warned us that if we find any Jews here, your family will be killed. So we ran our way looking for our first hiding place, or our next hiding place. And it was a very cramped bunker under a pigsty, even less space than in the ghetto, and less food, because the farmers, all the farmers in Poland, were regularly raided by Nazi soldiers and having their food stolen. So the farmer not only didn't have much food to give us, but also we weren't allowed to surface in the daytime. We were always frightened, or he was frightened, the farmer was frightened, of the Germans coming and finding us on the farm. So we had to only surface at dusk, and at dusk we had to slop out, get some fresh water, take a breath of fresh air, and then back into the bunker to sleep. And then the third bunker, my father was able to invite some other relatives and friends to join us because there was more room, and he invited my mother's brother's wife. She was pregnant, and she gave birth actually in the cellar, and the baby screamed, and when the farmer heard about this, he told us to get out. He was frightened for his own life and his family's life, and we had to make a terrible, terrible decision. Life or death. Life for one child, or the death for all of us, including that child. Had I been a grown-up, I think I might have liked to have taken a different decision, made a different decision, but I don't know. It's a very, very difficult situation, a very, very traumatic and impossible decision to have to make. Shortly after that, I remember the farmer opening the cellar trapdoor, and the sun was shining, and he said, "You're free." I didn't know what that meant. I thought that I was going to live like this for the rest of my life or get killed. And sure enough, the Germans were in retreat. They'd been kicked out of Poland by the Russians, and the Russians were back. And the farmer even said, "You can go back to your houses." We tried to go back to our houses, but our houses were occupied by Russians and Ukrainians, and they weren't prepared to give them back to us. So we became refugees.
Simon is lucky he survived. Today is an opportunity for us to honour Simon and the other survivors, and to remember the victims of the Holocaust and of Nazi persecution. We can each take a step to show that we are doing this. You could simply share what you have heard and learned today with someone who isn't here. Maybe your mum, your dad, your brother, sister, aunt or uncle, etc.
Before we finish, we would like to share a poem that is written by Pastor Neil Mahler. He was a German pastor who was arrested by the Nazis for not following their rules regarding the church. He narrowly escaped execution, and after his release, his deep regret about not having done enough to help the victims of the Nazis. The poem reads: First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
Pastor Mahler's poem contains just one of the many lessons that we can learn from the Holocaust. From this poem, we learn that we should speak up for others whenever they are in need. Think how we can apply this message to our daily lives.
As we extinguish the flame of this candle, may we never forget the many men, women, boys and girls whose life were taken so cruelly during the dreadful years of the Holocaust.
Now for some announcements. Friday is the big quiz, a whole school challenge organised by your school council. Play along with your form class in a battle of wits against all the other classes. Help your class answer questions in different rounds. Sport, TV themes or animals, or try to work out which babies/toddlers grew up into members of your school council in the picture round. The winner of the competition to design a symbol representing the pupil's voice will be announced during the quiz. Make sure your entries are with Mr. Thompson if you want that £25 voucher to spend in Argos. A bun sale will follow the big quiz on Friday in the Junior Assembly Hall to raise funds. Some of the money raised will be donated to Caleb, the young son of a former Lurgan Junior High School pupil who needs a special operation to help him walk properly. Please support your school counsellors on the day and keep them informed throughout the year of any issues you feel need addressed in school. The Pupil's Voice have also arranged for a special non-uniform day to be held on Friday the 14th of February on Valentine's Day to raise money for the British Heart Foundation. You can wear red clothes, red face paint, eat red food, or even all free. A special red themed menu will be provided in the canteen. This will be our final day before half term, and you should give your donation to your form teacher on Friday morning, at least £1 please. It's all for a great cause. A mobile phone has been handed into Mr. Thompson's office. The cleaners found it in a changing room. Please claim it today.
Scripture Union. The Tom team from Methodist Church will be back in again to take SU this Thursday the 30th of January from 3:30 to 4:20 p.m. in the room down the stairs at the end of the ORE corridor. Everyone is very welcome to come along. This Thursday will be the start of a series of Bible studies led by Carissa, Zoe and Ofa from the Methodist Church's Tom team. These meetings will be held every Thursday in the usual SU room during both early lunch and late lunch, and everyone will be very welcome to come along. You don't have to attend SU. Please remember to bring a packed lunch on Thursday if you intend to go along to the Bible study, or if you want to find out more about it, ask Mrs. Kennedy.
For under 12 rugby team, all players are asked to check the team sheet in the boys' outside gym ahead of the rugby tournament tomorrow at Portadown Rugby Club. There is a meeting today at break time for all the prefects involved in open evening in the boys' outside gym.